What happens when love for your parent collides with completely different worldviews? Kendall Jenner just opened up about the painful reality of navigating her relationship with Caitlyn Jenner, and what she revealed is both heartbreaking and incredibly relatable. In a rare moment of vulnerability on the Kardashians, the supermodel finally addressed the elephant in the room that millions of fans have been wondering about for years. This isn't just about celebrity drama. It's about something much deeper, something that so many families struggle with behind closed doors. So buckle up, because what Kendall just shared might hit closer to home than you think. Let's rewind to October 30th, 2025. The latest episode of The Kardashians just dropped on Hulu, and it's already making waves across the internet. But this isn't your typical Kardashian drama. This is different. This is real. And it all starts with an unexpected guest showing up at a family dinner. Picture this. The entire Kardashian Jenner clan gathered at their iconic Hidden Hills home, El Dorado Meadow, the house that was the backdrop for countless memories and 20 seasons of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. They're there to say goodbye before putting it up for sale. The energy is emotional, nostalgic. Everyone's reminiscing about the good old days. And then, Kris Jenner drops a bombshell. She invited Caitlyn Jenner. Now, for those who've been following this family for years, you know this is huge. Caitlyn hasn't appeared on The Kardashians since the show moved to Hulu in 2022. There's been distance, tension, years of complicated history. So when Caitlyn walks through that door, the shock on everyone's faces is palpable. Kendall's reaction? She wasn't expecting it. At all. In her confessional, she admits, quote, "I definitely wasn't expecting my dad to be here, just knowing the relationship that my mom has with my dad. Not that it's bad, it's just distant." And that word, distant, it carries so much weight. It's not anger, it's not hatred. It's something more subtle, more painful. It's the space that grows between people when they can't quite bridge the gap anymore. But here's where things get really interesting. While everyone's processing Caitlyn's surprise appearance, Kendall uses this moment to do something she rarely does. She opens up about her own relationship with her dad. And what she says is going to resonate with so many people out there. In a rare confessional interview, Kendall reveals something deeply personal. She says, "I have to compartmentalize my relationship with my dad in a way because I love her. She's my dad. We have a good relationship. But sometimes I get frustrated with her with certain things because we just have completely different views on things." Let that sink in for a moment. Compartmentalize. That's the word she uses. It's not about cutting someone off or choosing sides. It's about learning to love someone while fundamentally disagreeing with them. It's about holding space for a relationship even when it feels impossibly difficult. And this isn't some vague statement. Kendall's talking about real, tangible differences. While she doesn't explicitly name Caitlyn's political views in this particular moment, anyone who's been paying attention knows what she's referring to. Caitlyn Jenner has been an outspoken conservative for years. She ran for governor of California in the 2021 recall election. She's a registered Republican who's made controversial statements about LGBTQ issues, which is particularly complex given that she herself is transgender. The irony isn't lost on anyone. Here's a trans woman advocating for policies that many in the LGBTQ community vehemently oppose. And for Kendall, who's built her career in progressive circles, who moves in spaces where these views are not just disagreed with but actively fought against, it creates an almost impossible tension. Kris Jenner herself has called this out before. Back in 2016, on an episode of I Am Kate, Kris told Caitlyn, "You're not a politician, but you think you're a politician sometimes. Sometimes when you talk to somebody about your views, not everybody's going to always agree, and sometimes you can get a little cranky about that." Even earlier in this very episode, we see this dynamic play out. Kris tells the cameras about calling Caitlyn to invite her over. She says, "About an hour ago, I called Caitlyn and I said, 'What are you doing?' Of course," she said, "I'm eating dinner and watching Fox News." I said, "Of course you are." That little exchange tells you everything you need to know. The eye roll in Kris's voice, the resignation, the acceptance that this is just who Caitlyn is now. It's the kind of moment that happens in families everywhere. That moment when you call your relative and you already know exactly what they're going to say, and you're simultaneously exhausted and unsurprised by it. But here's what makes Kendall's statement so powerful, so mature. She doesn't throw her dad under the bus. She doesn't publicly blast her or make this about taking sides. Instead, she acknowledges the complexity. She admits the frustration, yes, but she also explains why she chooses to maintain the relationship anyway. Kendall continues. Other than that, I always want to include her. I know she doesn't have a lot outside of her family, and I think that she gets lonely. You don't ever want someone to be sad, especially your dad and someone you love and care about. There it is. The compassion underneath the frustration. The recognition that isolation and loneliness are real things, that family matters, that love doesn't disappear just because you disagree. This is the part that's going to make you tear up if you've ever been in a similar situation. Because let's be honest, how many of us have family members we love but struggle to connect with? How many of us sit at holiday dinners biting our tongues, changing the subject, trying to find neutral ground? How many of us have had to make the difficult choice between standing up for what we believe in and keeping the peace with someone we care about? Kendall's living that reality in the most public way possible. And she's choosing connection over cutting ties. She's choosing to show up, to include, to make space for someone whose views make her deeply uncomfortable. That takes courage. That takes maturity. That's not the easy path. Now let's zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture, because Kendall's situation with Caitlyn didn't happen in a vacuum. This tension has been building for years, and it involves the entire family. Take us back to 2017. That's when Caitlyn published her memoir, The Secrets of My Life. And let me tell you, that book did not go over well with the Kardashian side of the family. Not well at all. In the book, Caitlyn made some pretty bold claims about Kris, including the assertion that Kris knew about her gender identity issues all along. She wrote, quote, "I tell Kris about my gender issues before I make love to her. This will always be a subject of dispute between Kris and me as to how much she could intuit about my gender issues." Kris was furious. She felt blindsided, betrayed, and deeply hurt by how she was portrayed. And the Kardashian daughters, fiercely protective of their mother, rallied around her. Kim Kardashian was particularly vocal. During an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, Kim didn't hold back. She said, "If you turn on my mom and you continue to bash us, I can't even for the sake of my sisters spend time with someone who doesn't care about my mother. Like, enough already." That's Kim Kardashian, one of the most famous women in the world, essentially threatening to cut off her former stepfather if the attacks on Kris didn't stop. That's how serious this got. Khloe Kardashian was equally devastated. In a May 2024 episode of The Kardashians, Khloe broke down talking about the situation. She said, "This was my dad for 24 years and it hurts me too." 24 years. That's not a casual relationship. That's someone who raised you, who was there for your entire childhood and young adulthood. And then suddenly everything changes. But here's the thing about the Kardashians that people often overlook. Despite all the drama, despite the public feuds and the messy breakups, they always seem to find a way back to each other. It might take years. It might require serious boundaries. But they find a way. Kim eventually came around. By 2023, she was posting throwback photos with Caitlyn on Instagram for her birthday, captioning it, "Happy birthday, love you." That's growth. That's forgiveness. That's choosing family over ego. And now we see Kris doing the same thing. By inviting Caitlyn to say goodbye to their shared home, Kris is extending an olive branch. She's acknowledging their history, the good parts, the parts that matter. As Khloe pointed out in this recent episode, that takes serious emotional growth from Kris, considering everything that's happened between them. Kris herself reflected on this at the end of the evening, saying, "I'm so happy that we were all here and we were able to say goodbye to a house that brought us so much joy and love. Blood, sweat, and tears, highs and lows, and that Caitlyn was there. It's been a really long road, but it was Caitlyn's house too." That statement right there, it's bigger than a house. It's about acknowledging that you can't erase the past, even when the present is complicated. It's about honoring what was, even when what is looks completely different. But let's get back to Kendall, because her situation is uniquely challenging in a different way than her mom's or her sister's. Kris is Caitlyn's ex-wife. There's already built-in distance there, a natural separation that comes with divorce. The Kardashian sisters are stepdaughters. They have their own biological father, Robert Kardashian, who they adored. Their relationship with Caitlyn, while significant, had those degrees of separation. But Kendall and Kylie? Caitlyn is their biological parent. That bond is different. It's more primal, more fundamental. You can't divorce your parent. You can't step back from that biological connection, which is why Kendall's struggle hits differently. And here's something really interesting. Kylie seems to have an easier time with it. Back in 2021, Caitlyn revealed in an interview on the Skinny Confidential podcast that she actually feels closer to Kylie than to Kendall. She said, "Kylie and I just seem to be closer most of the time. Kendall's off kind of doing her thing. And Kylie, I had dinner last night at Kylie's house. We try to do that once a week, once every 2 weeks." She added that Kendall is a little bit more secretive, while Kylie is more of an open book. And you know what? That tracks. Kylie's always been more private in some ways, less politically outspoken, more focused on her businesses and her kids. She can more easily compartmentalize and just have dinner with her dad without the weight of ideological differences pressing down on every conversation. But Kendall's different. She's more sensitive, more introspective, more aware of the tensions and contradictions. She feels things deeply, and that includes the discomfort of loving someone whose views she finds frustrating or even harmful. She can't just switch that off. And that's what makes her confession so powerful. She's not pretending it's easy. She's not performing some fake happy family narrative for the cameras. She's being brutally honest about the fact that this is hard, that she has to work at it, that love sometimes requires conscious effort and deliberate choices. The timing of all this is important too. We're living in an incredibly polarized moment in American society. Families are being torn apart over politics, over social issues, over fundamental disagreements about what's right and wrong. Dinner tables have become battlegrounds. Group chats have turned toxic. People are cutting off relatives they once loved because the divide feels too wide to bridge. So when Kendall Jenner, one of the most famous models in the world, admits that she's struggling with the exact same thing, that's significant. That's normalizing something that millions of people are going through in silence. It's saying, you're not alone in this. It's okay to love someone and be frustrated by them. It's okay to maintain a relationship while also maintaining boundaries. It's okay to feel conflicted. Because here's the truth. Love is complicated. Family is messy. And sometimes the people we care about most are the ones who challenge us the deepest. That doesn't make the love any less real. It just makes it more complex, more adult, more nuanced. Kendall's approach, this compartmentalization she talks about, it's actually a really healthy coping mechanism. She's not in denial about the differences. She's not pretending they don't exist. She's acknowledging them, feeling her feelings about them, and then consciously choosing how she wants to move forward anyway. That's emotional maturity. That's the kind of thing therapists teach their clients to do. And the fact that she's thinking about Caitlyn's loneliness, about her isolation, that shows incredible empathy. It would be easy to write Caitlyn off, to say, well, those are the consequences of her choices, of her views. But Kendall's choosing to see beyond that, to recognize that everyone needs connection, that isolation is painful for anyone, regardless of their political beliefs. There's also something to be said about the generational aspect of all this. Caitlyn is 76 years old. She came of age in a completely different era, grew up with completely different cultural norms. Her journey to understanding and accepting her own gender identity happened later in life, shaped by decades of living as someone else. Her political views were formed in that context, too. Kendall is 29. She's a millennial who grew up with the internet, who came of age during massive social progress on LGBTQ rights, who's embedded in industries and social circles that are overwhelmingly progressive. The generational gap between them is massive, and that gap includes not just age, but entire worldviews. Neither of them chose this dynamic. Kendall didn't choose to have a parent with conservative views. Caitlyn didn't choose to have her transition coincide with a moment when those views would become particularly controversial and hurtful to communities she's now technically part of. They're both just trying to navigate the hand they've been dealt. And you know what? There's no perfect answer here. There's no clean resolution where everyone agrees and harmony is restored. This is just the messy reality of being human, of being in a family, of trying to hold on to love when everything else feels fractured. Some people watching this are going to think Kendall should cut Caitlyn off, that maintaining the relationship means condoning views that cause harm. Other people are going to think Kendall's being too harsh, that family should stick together no matter what. And honestly, both perspectives have validity. There's no universal right answer to this kind of situation. What matters is that Kendall's making the choice that feels right for her. She's setting her own boundaries, defining her own relationship with her parent on her own terms. She's not letting public opinion dictate her private family dynamics. That takes strength. As we wrap this up, let's circle back to that opening question. What happens when love for your parent collides with completely different worldviews? Kendall Jenner's answer is this. You compartmentalize. You feel frustrated. You show up anyway. You include them. You worry about their loneliness. You try to find the balance between maintaining your own values and maintaining the relationship. And you're honest about how hard it is. That's not a fairy tale ending. It's not a neat bow wrapped around a complicated situation. But it's real. It's honest. And for anyone out there dealing with something similar in their own family, it might just be the permission you needed to know that it's okay to feel conflicted, it's okay to not have all the answers, and it's okay to choose love even when it's hard. Kendall Jenner just gave us a masterclass in navigating family tension with grace, honesty, and compassion. And whether you're a Kardashian fan or not, that's something we can all learn from.